Hey guys, welcome back to AFK Journey. In today's video, I wanted to go through Stargazing priority for free-to-play, pay-to-win, and stuff like that. Now, this is a nuanced topic. I will just go through a general good recommendation that I think is a good overall recommendation, but then I want to go deeper into everything because I believe there is a bit more nuance to this topic. Also, it's a game, it's about having fun. If you just like a character, go nuts. The reason there is so much emphasis put on who to pull and stuff like that is because leaderboards are so important in this game for getting your resources if you want to stay competitive. If you're not a competitive player, then it doesn't matter as much and you can summon for whoever you like. The other thing is, if you have started summoning on one of the big four, which for me is going to be Rainier, Taylene, Scarlita, and Freesto. Those are the main four. If you're like beyond 2 copies and you're like 3, 4, 5, 6 copies into them, I'd probably just finish building them to where you want to build them before I move on to the next one. Because if you've got one of those characters at like 3, 4, 5 copies, it just becomes a bit, a bit wasteful. You can see my Rainier here is at 2 copies. That is because I got 1 copy of him straight away when I had access to him from the guild shop, and then I got my other one eventually through the event. Scarlita, I still haven't got through the event. So that is the first thing I want to touch on. If you're deep into building a character, just keep building them until you finish them and then reassess from there. The other thing is, if you are free to play and you've got, say, just got Rainier to Mythic Plus, I would be saving till we see what the next one is. That would be my personal play, or until you have enough to get like Scarlita to like maybe Supreme Plus or something like that. But in general, I think for free to plays, if you've just gotten like a Rainier Mythic Plus or someone else built, I would save until we see the next one. In general, I like saving my resources until I have enough to almost pity a character to the investment that I want them, because otherwise, if you save, like say for instance on my account, I've got 10 Stargazers and I've got over here, like 50, let's call it I had 60,000 guild coins. That's going to get me 2 copies of character, maybe 3. If I go and put that into Scarlita, I'm not really getting that much out of those copies. I'd rather save up until I've got more copies that I can get of a character, and while saving that, you're then, once you decide to summon, you will get them at a high viability because you'll get them at a higher ascension, or there'll be a new character come out that is more powerful and then you can summon for them instead. So those are the quick disclaimers out of the way about the process of doing it. If you are a new player in the game, it's the same thing with Rainier. I think 1 copy of Rainier is great for PvP, especially when you mix him with Odie. But in general, past that, I would just save until you have enough to, around about pity him and get those the copies that you need. Ideally with him, it's just the 8 copies. With some of the others like Taylene, she wants Supreme, and some of the others want Supreme Plus, which goes up to 14 copies. It gets insane. So those are all the disclaimers. Now let's jump over to this. I think this is a really great post done by Analytica. Massive shout out to Season Analytica. They polled a bunch of their players. Now, Analytica have like basically like all the top guilds, I think, in server 1 on global, and PTR as well. So they have a bunch of knowledgeable players. Yes, they are very whale centered, but they do have a bunch of free-to-play players as well and knowledgeable players. They polled about 200 to get this result. And I think this is a very good general recommendation to someone coming into the game blind, doesn't care about nuance, and just goes, what's my priority? I think Rainier to Mythic Plus still, you guys saw I went Taylene to Supreme as my first character, and I have managed to get top 10 on my server in 4 of the bosses, which is a really good result for me. She's also decent in PvP and stuff like that. But the thing with Rainier is he is just so safe, and you only have to get him to Mythic Plus. A lot of these other characters you'll see, you want to get them to Supreme Plus or Supreme, so you start getting the effectiveness out of Rainier early. Also, the thing to remember with Rainier and Scarlita in this is that you can get them from that daily login event that goes forever, where we get all the different characters. So that gives you a bonus free copy of those characters. So Rainier, essentially, if you get him from that event, you're only looking to get 7 copies of him. Whereas if you're going for Supreme Plus, Freesto, you're looking at getting 14 copies. Taylene, you're looking to go to Supreme and get 10 copies. So that is why Rainier is just such high value, in my opinion, because of the lack of cost to acquire him and his general usage for free to play. And the reason, I'm just going to go over this, I know a lot of people already know this, and the reason is basically just his exclusive equipment getting that damage increase. It's basically what we're looking for to get that increased damage on the enemy. Now, if you do get this to level 3 plus 10, that is, you do get the damage taken reduction for the ally that gets swapped, but essentially you're just getting that extra damage, which is really nice. Rainier can be used in AFK stages. He can be used in PvP, but his main place is for bossing, and he gives that just good value for investment, in my opinion. And I do think that eventually one day Rainier could be power crept, because really, like, yes, he does have the extra healing ability, which is really fantastic and stuff like that, but as we go on, maybe he will get power crept in that someone comes in with a 35% damage increase taken, and it sort of scales him out of that position, and running 2 of them doesn't seem as viable anymore. It could happen, but at the moment, like I said, in the current state of the game, I just think the value you get out of this guy for the lower cost is still high enough that I think he should be top priority for free to play. Once again, it took me a long time to decide this, because I wanted to thoroughly test especially Taylene, because I think Fraesto is more of a whale-centric character, and I do think Scarlita does have value for that PvP. Now, let's just quickly bounce over here and take a look at this one. So once again, Rainier to Mythic Plus is a no-brainer. Then they move into Scarlita above Fraesto. Now, Fraesto is seeing heavy use in bosses, deficit pushing in AFK stage pushing, and also in the Dream Realm as well. Now, what you will see is on a lot of whale accounts and stuff like that, you will see Fraesto doing really well. However, I don't think he gets a position ahead of Rainier personally, because he does require that Supreme Plus. Ideally, yes, he starts working at Mythic Plus Supreme. Like, he actually just gets better along the way. But to get that true value out of him, you're probably looking at Supreme Plus. And once again, that is 14 copies of a character as opposed to the 7 that you need for Rainier, because you get 1 from the event. So it is double the cost to get him. But you will see him used a lot in the high ranking teams. You can see here again, we've gone through 3 bosses so far. This one he's not in, and then this one he's not in. And then if we go to Lone Gaze, once again, he gets an appearance again. So yes, Fraesto is really decent in bossing. He's useful in PvP, and he's amazing at deficit pushing. But I do feel like he's one of those characters who is more of a gives more as opposed to creates the sentiment, if that makes sense. So I think he's more of a nice added touch, and that makes him more of the spenders character. But if you do pick him up as free to play, it's not a horrible option. I just think, once again, that Rainier is a better option first up. So I just realized I went off on a massive tangent on Fraesto, but I was leaning it back into talking about Scarlita. Now, Scarlita is one of those characters that I think just has a really good shot at having longevity. She has usage over in like PvP. She is the queen of PvP at the moment. She has amazing PvP usage. I believe there used to be a case to go her before Rainier if you were trying to push PvP to get into the higher ranks, to be able to get the weekly purchases of the Stellar Crystals. However, they've reduced the weekly amount of Stellar Crystals and given it as a general thing to everyone. So that priority has dropped, and we've gone back to focusing on bossing as the priority. But Scarlita can be used in bossing. She's good in AFK stages, and she's the queen of PvP. Now, with Scarlita, how I mentioned with Rainier, I do think eventually maybe he gets power crept out of bossing. I think Scarlita, for her PvP usage, I think it's going to take a fair bit to phase her out. The main reason being is that her knockoff ability, her execute, is not just like Odie. It's the fact that you knock them out of play and it negates effects that are supposed to counteract the instant kill. For instance, Taylene, she just punts her off the field, she doesn't get to revive. Thorin punts him off the field, doesn't get to revive. So she just essentially works around a system so well that I think she is going to be hard to be power crept. It's going to take a while of raw numbers, and I could be wrong on this, of raw number damage dealing units to be a power creep her, or, you know, units with other unique effects that counteract her, but I don't know what that would be. So I think she is that safe second option. Once again, don't go just picking up like 2 copies of her. She really does want that heavy investment to be used in PvP, so do keep that in mind. She can be used at lower dupes in AFK stage pushing though. So once again, if we retrace back to here, Rainier Mythic Plus, Scarlita, then to Supreme Plus, then Fraesto or Taylene. Now, like I said, I am a Taylene fan. I have built her myself. I think she's quite fantastic. She has managed to get me into top 10 on 4 of the bosses on my account. So Fraesto versus Taylene, I think it's up to you. I think at this point, you know, we're looking more at whale territory. So I think for whales, I think Friesto is the better first pick, honestly, because I do believe that for free-to-play players, by the time you get 2 of these units built, the priority will be completely different with new Celestial Hypogeans that come into it. So I do believe that we are into whale territory here, and that is where I think Friesto is going to be the play. Now, the other thing with whales is I have seen some opinions that for whales, you can skip the Rainier first and just go Scarlita and Friesto, depending on how much you're spending. If you're going to Giga Whale into it, then that could be an option for you because it helps you push deficits and push Arena to the top. And then for bossing, those 2 would be decent enough to get you higher scores, and then you can look to Rainier. But I think this whole conversation is a bit missed by me personally because I'm not a spender, and it heavily depends on your levels of spending, on like how quick are you going to acquire these units. So it's a bit of a tricky one because early on, if you're starting like a fresh account, whales are getting that level difference, so they don't really need to super excel in boss fights because they have the levels to make up for it. So these other units allow them to excel in those other areas that Rainier doesn't. But once again, I think this general priority is like a safe play because I don't know how much people are spending. I don't know how long it's going to take them to do it. So when we talk about spending, it is one of those weird, awkward zones that are hard to, just get your head around. Now, as we look into those final 2 units that we have here with DNL and Burial, DNL is actually a fantastic, like the dude just absolutely shreds in PvP. But the problem is he is that Giga Whale option where I think Scarlita is just better. Like if you're a free-to-play player and you're picking one up for PvP and say Scarlita didn't have any usage anywhere else, I would still pick up Scarlita. But DNL is that next level unit where once he does ult, he is just shredding absolutely everything, whereas Scarlita has the supportive capabilities as well. So he is actually great for whales in PvP, but once again, he is a whale unit. And then Burial. Burial is honestly probably one of the funnest besides Taylene, in my opinion. He's the second funnest unit to use. I just love the way all the clones come up when you get him to Mythic Plus and stuff like that. But this guy is much more niche. He does see some usage in PvP and stuff like that. Some AFK stage, but in general, this guy is much more niche, and he is a character that you're either pulling because you just love the design of the character and you're playing for fun, or because you are a Giga Whale and you've got everyone else built. But once again, I do think when we look at this type of priority list, I do think by the time a free-to-play gets their first character built, and like at most their second character built, I do think we will have new Celestial Hypogeans and this order could change. So that's why I definitely always recommend saving till you have the resources to pity or close to pity the character to the ascension you want, because you never know, you could get a character to like, Mythic or Legendary Plus or something like that, and then a new OP one comes out and you're like, dude, I could have had that Legendary Plus investment on them and just push them up with the extra summons. So, it's one of those things, you got to toss it up, and saving is always hard. But that is my general thoughts on the priority. I think the guys at Analytica pretty much nailed this one in general, but at the end of the day, I think with the big 4 being Rainier, Scarlita, Friesto, and Taylene, all are decent options. And even though I still think that Rainier is the best option if you're trying to get your boss damage up, especially as free to play, and get those extra resources, if you have gone for any of the others, you can definitely do decent with them and have fun and progress pretty well anyway. But let me know your guys' thoughts. As always, thanks for watching. Hope you have an awesome day, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Cheers.